All right, hello everybody. I'm Ross Evans, founder and CEO of Xtracycle, and I'm excited to share this day with you. We are just kicking off an exciting series of 3 webinars that we are just so grateful to be hosted by Google Hangouts on air for free. So to all of you who are tuning in, welcome. This has been quite a journey to get to this point, and how about that for all the technology that's kicked in since those early days. So we're doing this for the first time, so if you'll bear with me as I navigate some of the technology, I'm sure we're gonna run into some various little things that I just appreciate your patience as we go. But anyhow, there's been a lot of curiosity about the evolution of the bolt-on kit. Early on, we called that the FreeRadical. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of the history of that with you guys. Many of you who are new and don't know as much about it, I want to bring you up to speed. Many of you on this webinar are the old timers. Many of you were there with me from the beginning, so it's really great to have you here as well. But what I'm looking forward to doing is showing you a progression from where we started and kind of where we're going. So this is the first of the 3, which is really looking back to the past. Many of you who watched Liz Canning's excerpt from Less Car More Go will know some of this story, but we're going to reveal some pieces and some photos that have never been seen, and I'm just excited to show you that. So we're going to switch over here and kick off the presentation slides. So just give me a second here. Oops. Okay, great. Okay, if I did that right, y'all should be seeing my screen, my slideshow, just to kick off this series. So here we are. This is the beginnings. This is little Ross growing up in Tucson, Arizona. Just grew to love bicycles. It was a great town for riding in, and that was my first bike. A hand-me-down from my sister, but loved it nonetheless. And that kicked off kind of a love affair and a series of bikes. But also my family was very into bicycling. They took us to school in a trailer, kind of the early, before the Burley trailer even existed, little cargo trailer. So had an early life with a lot of bicycles. Got into various forms of racing. I thought BMX was rad, and then I got into some road riding and some triathlon stuff. But about this time I went off to high school, and college, just to say. And in college, I wrote my freshman research paper all about bicycles and how they might be applied to use in helping the developing world get out of poverty and address major third world problems. And in the course of researching that paper, I encountered some data that suggested maybe a bike trailer would be the way to go, that there's lots of bikes and they didn't have a way to carry stuff, so we should try that out. So sure enough, I found a way to get into a class called ME 103, which was a mechanical engineering class that you learned how to weld and machine, and so I had the actually great honor last night to go back to Stanford and present at a good products, bad products class with Dave Beach, Professor Dave Beach, who was my teacher, instructor, and professor for this class. And so that was just an awesome sort of round coming all around. But one of the things he mentioned when he introduced me last night was that my original hope was to make this trailer that I made in his class out of recycled parts. I had this idea that would be the way to build things out, but of course that wasn't the way of Silicon Valley. This ended up being all virgin parts and TIG welded, and so we had a good laugh about that. But that led its way into a series of questions about what needed to happen. How were they going to be used? What was the kind of the functionality, and balancing and weighing all these factors? And as part of that, I went down to Nicaragua, got a chance to go work with a group of disabled veterans of the Contra War, and they were interested in making a cargo bike, and also learning how to weld and fixing bikes. So I was there as a trainer, and we set up this very basic shop and became good friends. And in the process, we kicked things off by making this first trailer there. Now, again, in the spirit of great, evolution and discovery, we found that this trailer was difficult to make, and although it was an improvement over the first one I had made, in that it was now MIG welded and simple steel and no complex enclosures, it really didn't work well there. And so when I came back, we started evolving this idea of a long tail. Actually, the first ones, and I have a slide in here, I think, they'll show sort of one of the first bikes, which was fully welded and in a sort of a fantastic nod to the Edge Runner, which of course now you can even see in this picture that this bike has a 20-inch wheel, and from the beginning it was clear that having a 20-inch wheel was really going to increase stability and strength. It had some complexity in that a lot of these bikes didn't come with that 20-inch wheel. So in the developing world, we really ended up focusing on being able to convert any bike, and that ultimately became the work of Bikes Not Bombs. Of World Bike, and that was the following on of my work with Bikes Not Bombs. And but that's another story. This is the continued evolution of the bolt-on kit, and went through many different iterations looking for ways to make it look good and simplicity. But effectively, this was a real evolution because we had discovered that the trailer didn't work the way we had hoped it would, and that in the roads in Nicaragua were often, there was just a single track path, and we couldn't get the wheels, like special 20-inch wheels just for trailer wheels are very common in the US, but actually in Nicaragua it was a much harder thing to come by. So the evolution of this product, and kind of in intervening years, went to South Africa and taught some workshops there, and Senegal and Cuba, and through the course of this evolved to the point where I was frustrated trying to raise money for grants, and I was back at Stanford, and a friend of mine, longtime friend, Kipchoge Spencer, and I got to talking one night at a party, and he had graduated and gone off to work at with Amory Lovins at the Rocky Mountain Institute, and was doing some raft guiding in South America. And he said, I really wanted to kick this thing. I really want to start a business. And so we decided to go launch this thing, and entered a business plan competition for social entrepreneurs. And a sort of piece of trivia, we got second prize, and by great surprise to us, they said the reason why was because it wasn't clear about your social mission. And we were so trying to prove the business case that we sort of just thought everybody would obviously see the social mission. But we joined together, and he helped really co-found Xtracycle and get this thing off the ground. And through the course of that, we made lots of different prototypes and evolved the design, and it was just a lot of trial and error. Ultimately, moved Xtracycle up to the Sierra foothills, and this is sort of our HQ at Willow Springs. This is the early crew. So Kipchoge, Ben Sarazin, aka Finocchio, Chad Carpenter, and Evangeline, or Vange Elston, and we had this little posse. We were kind of a merry band as we kicked this thing off, and it was really this is the spirit that I think is important that I've come to see, that's so much a part of the FreeRadical and the history of Xtracycle. And I guess the reason I'm telling this part of the story now is because I realize it's so essential to keep the spirit alive as we launch the Mega Rack, and as we've developed Edge Runner, and it's become a really fantastic bike, and a bit more of a high end, and a product that really meets it's just works so fantastically, and yet it really has a different sales channel, a different price point, less DIY. And so realizing that this is an opportunity that we'll talk more about at a later time. Those early days were also just a bunch of great people got involved. On the dealer side, it was very difficult to get any dealers to bike shops and dealers to take it on. I had many of them sort of say, hey, good luck to you, kid, but we're not interested. And I, for a long time, I was really resentful about that. But this is one particular dealer, Aaron Goss, and he created a thing called RideYourBike.com, and he was really early, and still continues to be a major supporter of Xtracycle and the FreeRadical, and Kipchoge, and being the Pleasant Revolution tour mechanic at one point, and Another noteworthy guy that I should have a photo in here of is Todd Farmer, who started Clever Cycles with a couple of other early free rad riders, and of course people who have gone on to really help make us grow this thing. But I thought I'd show this little, sort of what do you call it, montage of just so many of the people. If you look around online, and it's so inspiring to me to see how many people all over the world have done creative, and from the creative to the mundane. In the lower right, there's a family of 3 generations on a bike, and just people being creative and crafty, and taking their kids camping. And this is really, I think, in some ways unexpected, in some ways really was the dream outcome of our early crew working hard to grow this thing. Some other fun things that kind of came about over that time. There was the bicycle blender created by Nate Byerly, now produced by Rock the Bike and Paul Friedman. Just a really fantastic crew of people that came and gathered around this and just helped in all sorts of creative and zany and fun and inventive and brilliant ways. This woman, I think she was vying for a reality TV show, and her shtick was something to do with bicycles and blending. But really our goal was to popularize something that at the time was not popular, in the sense of cargo and utility. In fact, I say, sort of cargo bike was a 4-letter word at that time. And we really tried to distance ourselves from that by talking about sport utility and showing pictures of, sexy couples going out on the town. And I think to a degree that the world is the place where it is right now. We had some success with that, and I certainly am just grateful to all the people that made a big impact on that as we found our way forward through stumbling through all the various challenges that were totally unanticipated, and certainly I was very naive about what it would take to launch this thing, which I guess I failed to mention. But the real reason why I convinced myself that it was a good idea to start a company was that I thought that's how you make money, and then we could go turn around and get back to doing the work I wanted to in the developing world. Although as you'll see in this picture, my ultimate clarity that I got was that, in fact, exporting a culture as much as a product from the US is what we do here, and it's one of the great ways I think that we can ultimately loop back around and make lasting change around the world, which is helping people, much like there's villages in Africa that were never landlines were never put in, no copper was ever laid. They just bypassed that and went straight to cellular. And my dream is that we would maybe bypass some of the car culture exportation and rapid rise of consumption that often is coupled with development, and instead instead really see how in some of the wealthiest countries, like in Northern Europe, where bicycle use is some of the highest rates in the world, and how that's really the model, and we can potentially, much like the cell phone, just bypass the laying of roads and the gridlock and the waste that might go with that. So I think that's the future and the dream, to wax philosophical for a moment. I also just wanted to touch on sort of the FreeRadical and some of the early lessons. We learned some different things. One was certainly that people were very creative and used it in all sorts of ways we never expected. We also saw that it didn't hold up as well as one might have hoped when just used way more extensively, and so gathering this feedback and at various points having ideas about how to fix that. This was something I called the Golden Gate, which was this I thought was a very clever idea for how to support the rear end of the Xtracycle, which turned out to be more prone to breakage than I would like. Lots and lots of people have just 10 years or more of riding on theirs, and they're very gentle, or whatever reason they don't have any problems, but we have other hardcore users. And I think that was really what inspired me to start thinking about just a very, very robust redesign. I think also coupled with that, we really learned a lot from our dealers, the dealers that were trying to use it. There was kind of it's become an interesting growth of community bike shops, which didn't exist very much when we started. So the bike kitchen model, as well as dealers that are like Russell and the crew at the Durango Cyclery, just super devoted to converting bikes and seeing that that's one part of our culture, and there's other shops that do really well with selling the Edge Runner. And one of the visions here is to make sure that we really serve all of these different users and shops, and so that's, you know, part of our evolution was to try to hit all these points as we went through the process. The other thing that I really noticed was the advent of all these DIY people, and, you know, making their own. You know, in the lower left, you see somebody who made a bamboo or carbon fiber sort of Xtracycle hack kind of thing that they wanted to do, and somebody else welded up their own, and maybe it's aluminum or stainless with, you know, square tubing, and somebody else, you know, made their own bags out of old belts, and you know, what's his name, Anthony, I think Stout, who, you know, sewed up his own covering so that they, you know, they could tour with his kids on the back. And the lower right, you see the only photo I could find from Instagram, kind of I just throwing this together, but it was an inspiring moment. Nate and I were in Yoyogi Park in Japan, which is in Tokyo is where this park is, and we were hosted by Rie Okamoto, our Japanese distributor there, and she had this gathering of all these cargo bike riders, and, you know, many of them had converted in very creative ways their bikes, and I was just so inspired by the things that they had done. And one of the biggest things I noticed was that they really wanted to have different wheel sizes. We had people who had converted them to make smaller wheels and bigger wheels, and had just done incredible work, kind of, you know, customizing and, you know, hacking, and I realized that's another big part of this culture that we really wanted to support. So it became one of the core design, you know, drives with the Mega Rack, was to make sure that we could accommodate different wheel sizes. Of course, you know, as history has changed from the, you know, early days when I started working on this in, you know, the late 90s, you know, mountain bikes were all 26-inch wheels, and it was much more rare to find a 24-inch wheel bike, or certainly there were no, you know, real 29ers or 29 plus, the fat bikes that, you know, are just really taking the world by storm right now. So the evolution also of our kit in the Mega Rack, you know, needed to accommodate those changes. So enter Keener, Brian Keener from Tucson, Arizona, just a very brilliant and talented inventor, builder. He you know, builds high powered what do you call it, telescope mirrors at the University of Arizona Mirror Laboratory during the day, and builds this, like you could see, his very long bike. He's one of the first guys to ever build a 36-inch wheel mountain bike, which you see in the upper left-hand corner. When he built this dream bike for Burning Man, he made sure it was Xtracycle compatible, as you can see, with the speakers in the back. And I convinced him to join in. He was a big believer in the FreeRadical. Had set up many of his friends and neighbors with them, and we sat down together and started tinkering and welding in his shop, and evolved the sort of early stages of the Mega Rack, which I should use this moment to talk about the name Leap, which was some people heard the name Leap because when we first launched this product at Interbike, it was we were just really not thinking very much about how ready we were to go into production. I was just sort of very excited as I get about things, and we still had a lot of work to do, but this is in the early stages of testing. In fact, this is on the very first test ride when Keener and I built up the first Mega Rack and bolted it on to a kind of like a, you know, early, you know, squirrely rock hopper or something kind of mountain bike. And he sat on the back. We loaded it up with, you know, 4 5-gallon water bottles you see there, and so I think the total weight was somewhere around, you know, 350 pounds. And I was able to get out of the saddle and, you know, not have it twist. And it was just a revelation to me, a lot of the things that I had assumed about the FreeRadical, and a lot of people always came to assume about bolt-on kits being, you know, necessarily noodly and stuff. In that moment, I just realized it absolutely didn't have to have some perfect front end bike frame. It was really that that the early design of the FreeRadical, we had been most concerned with creating a truss so that, loading it would work really well, but we hadn't really thought much about the impact of torsional loading and how, as you load this thing up and ride, more and more, an expert rider, could carry all sorts of things. But in our case, we really found as this became more and more interesting to people like moms with kids and people who maybe weren't expert riders, the swaying of the tail, or I like to say the tail wagging the dog sometimes, would make people a little bit nervous. And so the Mega Rack had to address that as well. And this first prototype was just was a moment of truth that really proved out that. Enter Taiwan. I've been going to Taiwan since 2000, when we first made the first 100 in our shop and outside of Nevada City. It was a very difficult time, and it turned out that we just aren't very good at making lots of things, and I find I get very bored after making the first one or two. And we partnered with some people in the early days. Arthur Chu, TransLink, was just an incredible partner to us and helped us really build all the free rads and a lot of the accessories through a lot of years. But when we went to launch this, we partnered with the different group, and William became just a fantastic partner. And he's really, along with Keener, just been an incredible contributor to this project. And you'll see in this next slide just how the design evolved so much when William became part of the team, and his questions and his desire for perfection and just lack of acceptance of anything that might be not as strong or not as roadworthy. He really helped me lift this up to the next level. So one of the casualties in that process was one of my original goals was to really bring the cost down on the Mega Rack, and that's kind of the original reason I launched into the whole thing. But in the process of working with William, I realized very clearly that we couldn't cut corners. We really had to make sure that we had just an incredibly high function product, and the amount of waste that could happen if there were errors and inaccuracies. And so we have yet to get the final price. We're sort of in this thing, but it looks like the level of quality, the detail, the fact that just how many things, that the strength and the tooling, the price is going to go up a little bit, but the outcome is just going to be a phenomenal bike that works just incredibly well. Most Keener, for instance, who's been a long time big dummy rider, exclaimed after that first ride, with like I said, the flimsy rock hopper front end, that it was as stiff as his big dummy or possibly stiffer. So it's exciting times, but definitely looking to our team in Taiwan to help us get this thing done. And here's a little Mega Rack reveal. I wanted to just not wax totally in the past and to say here's some things we have to look forward to. I'm incredibly proud of the new attachment system. So that's kind of the right hand images are all CAD models. This is all stuff that has to be tooled up, and to me it's just a total dream come true to get a chance to rework this whole thing. But it's been surprisingly difficult to be successful in making a totally new, the FreeRadical turned out to be a pretty good design, and it was really difficult to improve upon it. And yet I have to say I'm just delighted that I do believe we've nailed it on this one. And I think many people would say I have an irrational exuberance for this product. I did want to make sure I forgot to tell you at the beginning, you can actually click your keypad in the upper right and select Q&A, and I would love to take some questions if anybody has them out there. Like I said, there will be some follow-up. We're gonna post a link to a survey, as well as there'll be if you get in on the list, we'll make sure you know about the next webinar. We'll reveal more of the details. But at this moment, we have a few minutes to answer questions. So if you are new to navigating Google Hangouts, just go to the upper right-hand part of the window, and you can select Q&A and just send that in, and we'll see if we can answer some of your questions. So just to kind of finish off with a few other quick things, and maybe I'll even have a chance to show you a video. Here's some early testing. You can kind of see what it looks like when it's assembled to a folding bike. Just handles incredibly well with an adult on there. And this is one of the most exciting facets to it. There's two things going on in this photo. One, well, of course, my son and I are in an incredibly beautiful place, which is powered by. We've been really playing a lot with, as electric bikes, and many people who are in the DIY world or in the e-bike space know about the Bafang or the ERAD mid-drive system, and it is just so powerful. And when combined with this new possibility through the Megarack being 29 plus compatible, this is a Surly Krampus, which is a 29 plus tire, just a phenomenal and fun and powerful. It is just such a great experience to ride that bike. You can see we did just a huge adventure crossing Crissy Field and ultimately getting on to the BART at the end of the day. So this bike continues to uphold the values of adventure and freedom and fun that we really set out to do. And I'm really looking forward to, with your help and through this community, as I said from the beginning, it's just been a phenomenal part of Xtracycle's growth, and to have the FreeRad's legacy product, the Megarack, live on. It's going to be critical that we all band together and figure out, so I love your feedback. I love your questions. I really hope anybody who's listening now gets engaged, and you can, if you missed the window now, you can, I'm not sure exactly what the right mechanism, you can email support@xtracycle.com, and we can go from there. So yeah, this is just the final slide before I answer a few questions. Thanks for sending those in. This is just to say, I'm excited about what's next. There's a bold and brave future ahead of us. So a couple questions that came in. Do current FreeRad bits and pieces attach without modification? What? Oh yeah, I'll switch this over. Sorry, my team is reminding me here. I'm gonna switch back over so you can see my face. If I can do that. Okay, you should see me again. All right, we survived the slideshow. And so first question was, do FreeRad bits and pieces attach without modification? I'm not entirely sure what that means. The FreeRad is, the old one, and certainly, I think the question is meaning like all the accessory parts. So I imagine like freeloaders and stuff. And yes, it depends, I should say. If you go with the 29 plus or the bigger wheel model, you'll have to modify your wide loaders if you had those, or U-tubes now, because the rear pass-through attachment point, that rear bridge is now cut so that the tire comes through there. But in general, yeah, if you wanted to take your racks and bags and deck, it's not clear. I think I'm not positive if the old snap deck, we haven't tested that yet. It's been through a number of iterations, but various spacings had to be addressed. So it's not clear whether that's going to work, but we'll support that. Geez, all right, the questions are flying in. FreeRad bits we got. How does the load capacity differ from the FreeRad? I would say that this thing is just, you could drive a truck over it. It's so strong. That's really what was one of the biggest goals that I had. So, obviously, like I talked a lot about the lateral or the torsional stiffness and rigidity that really just enables a much smoother ride in terms of when you load it up and just don't get that, waggy feeling. That's where it really shines. But truthfully, if you put in a beefy wheel and rim on there, and you could just, I don't know. It's the frame. Certainly the FreeRad will not be, or the Megarack will not be the limiting factor. So I guess it probably comes down to your own capacity, your own leg strength. Question here was, what wheel sizes does it work with? Currently, we're slated to launch it with a 24-inch wheel, 26-inch wheel, 700C, and 29 plus, and effectively all of them will come with a very cool post mount system. So just, any of you who struggle to get your disc brakes aligned, and there's a really cool just difference around how the old one, there was some challenges with your disc brake rubbing, and that's kind of been addressed by the way the frame is. But I imagine for those of you out there who are interested in a real project, there's a question here about fat bike compatibility. It's going to take some creativity to really truly address fat bike because of all the offsets. It's not set up to do the super wide OLD, the overlock nut width that many fat bikes have, but it is so that I've oriented around the fat bike as far as either a 24x3 or a 29 plus, so the 700C on a with a 3-inch tire is just has been the one that I've been the happiest with. So we'll see. It was something that was outside of the realms to do a pure very fat bike model. Just that didn't pan out as much as we were thinking, but I've been very happy with the fatness of the 29 plus. So yeah, Will says if somebody's very interested in using a 20-inch wheel and hacking that, I haven't done it yet. I imagine it will be conceivable, and somebody will figure out how to do it. It depends which bike you put it on, and you would have to use a disc brake on that because the V-brake kind of posts will only be at the 24-inch size, the 26-inch size, and the 700C size. For the 29 plus, the tire would be way too big to fit a post. Why did they name it Megarack? That's a great question. In the early days of Xtracycle, we were just terribly tickled with all of our naming and just thought it was great fun. And I have to say I miss those days a little bit. But as we've gotten feedback from the world and really aiming to reach more people, I got a bit of advice, which is make sure that the promise is in the name. And when I thought about this product, I wanted to make sure people knew that this was just a hardy, beefy rack. That's what it is. People would always be confused, and a lot of times in the early days, we were trying so hard to have people not think that it was a trailer and and it was an attachment. We just talked about it as a complete bike. Well, now that there's complete bikes, that's confusing to people, and we really want them to know that just like you could go and get a rack to put on your bike, this is just a rack, but it's the mega rack. It's like the biggest rack conceivable, and so that's why the name Megarack. And I think it's internationally, I think it kind of has a little bit of just simplicity to it. So we sell a lot of these bikes and our parts worldwide, so wanting to kind of make that culturally fit and just the clarity, like taxi, like just keep it really simple. Final question I have here is how much does it weigh? And got more coming in. And the answer to that is I actually don't know yet. I haven't weighed it. My hunch is relative to the FreeRadical frame, we've added some weight, probably about 2 pounds, but that is not finalized. And so I'm just still getting the final pieces in. We've done a lot of testing with samples, but I haven't done the sort of final check as we've gotten all the bits tested, and we've finalized the actual thickness of wall and tubing and all the various parts. So it'll change a little bit based upon the size, because the racks will be cut taller or shorter. But I'm going to guess that it's going to be for the whole thing with deck and bags and everything, it'll be about 10 to 15 pounds is my guess. About 15 pounds with the bags on there is my guess. Time to market. Good question. We are just gung-ho about this. I guess I'm just so irrationally exuberant around this product, and but we really have a lot of hoops to jump through still, and we're going to rely on those of you who are the early kind of team and community to help us kind of get through this phase. And so we'll be talking about that on a future call. But cross your fingers, everybody gets behind and pushes. This will be available, meaning like we'll have some produced and available, kind of maybe the first run available late this fall, so 2015. Cost in different countries was the other question to that, and that is it's something we haven't really navigated. We have a few distributors in other countries, and so we really love selling through them. Like I mentioned before, Japan with Rie, just awesome. culture and support and network there. And so it really depends on Ria, kind of how she ends up pricing it. In Europe, we have a distributor, Oga, and they are, Luigi, who runs that, is just a fantastic guy, with Titiana, his wife, and they have really been supporting but I think we're probably at this point run out of free rads worldwide. And so I think there's going to be a lot of anticipation. We haven't figured out yet the logistics of shipping internationally and whether we're going to attempt to do that. For now, we're really going to be focused on the US with some European support from Luigi, and from Japan, hopefully will come on board really well, as some distribution in Canada and Australia. Those have been the strongest places, although we do have some distributors in Thailand and a couple other small ones. So I'm really hoping we can get this thing to grow with that group of people. So yeah, that answered the question about distribution in Europe. My intention is that we will absolutely have great distribution in Europe, but depending on how this kickoff goes and how much interest we get. So weigh in, rally your people. A lot of this is going to have to do with those of you who know about this, like putting the word out, and we're going to probably offer some, as we go into the fall, we're going to offer some options like buying a 10-pack, which is really oriented towards dealers, so that the dealers can kind of buy in and really support the kickoff of this thing, the ones that really know that they're going to do well with it. But it also offers the opportunity for people in a particular country or in a particular, well, that, like I said, I don't know about the country part, but in the US anyway, I'm excited about the possibility that we could get small towns or groups of people that would band together and say, we're gonna launch this thing, we'll pool our money and buy 10, and we'll all get together on a Saturday and put them together. So that's part of my dream of this, is that we really kick off an incredible community. There's also a whole side to the early days of Xtracycle, which was the long tail marketplace, and that was the idea that people would make products to work with the LT system, and that became difficult for us to manage. And I think that with the right community involvement, we're going to be able to kick this thing off with some great accessories and parts from partners who are excited about Mega Rack and the continuation of the free rad, kind of bolt on and DIY and lifestyle and adventure and all the aspects. For instance, those of Green Guru has made some fun stuff that would work great on it, or Upski in Colorado also. There's a possibility we can really promote some of the stuff they've been making through that channel. So what do you think? I think we're good. All right. Anyway, wow, I almost went 40 minutes. So thanks for hanging in there. It's been a real hoot to kick this off online. And please do make sure you, how do people find out about this survey?
It's on the showcase.
On the showcase? What's the showcase? Oh, that's
so,
like click some upper right hand thing.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So on your screen somewhere, there's something called a showcase. There's some details there that should, oh yeah, I remember the showcase. So they'll basically give you some links and make sure you plug in and stay informed and spread the word, so that all the people who might be interested in catching the next one, where I go into some of the real specific details that I'm super excited about. I'm working really hard to get the samples here so I can show you, kind of real time. Actually, I can't help myself. I'm gonna. This is an example of like what's coming. This is just such a cool part here. This is the first sort of sample we got of the attachment system, and it is just beefy, and it just addresses so many of the issues that we had in the those of you who have installed these things, you're just gonna sing hallelujah when you go to put one of these on. It's just so much easier, so much more intuitive, so much stronger, so much more reliable. Doesn't rely on a little bridge tube going across the front, and it's just really adjusts well to each different bike depending on clearances that you have. And so of course, I'm sure I don't know if anybody out there, there's been people who have sort of said that bolt-on is just sort of like cheesy, or why don't you make a full bike? And I will just say, now that we've made a full bike, the difficulty of making one product that will fit on so many bikes has been an extraordinary challenge. I enjoy the challenge. It's, keeps me on my toes, but this is one of the hardest design projects ever. And so I guess that's probably what makes me so excited about it. When we get the pieces to work, it just feels like such a huge victory. So I can't wait to get it out to you guys. Thanks so much for joining in. And I look forward to, the next call. And again, thanks for all your support. Take care. Keep the rubber side down.